Welcome back, Pokemon trainers. This is your friendly neighborhood Bullados, and today you're going to get to watch me as I try and modify this deck. Modify the Rayquaza Eelektrik deck that I had originally built for Battle Roads, and now I'm going to modify again for the City Championships format. As a reminder, the City Championships format this year is from uh, Black and White through Boundaries Crossed, including Dragon Vault. I already showed you guys how I built this deck the last time I built it, and I've also shown you some of the new threats that have come out of the Boundaries Crossed set. So I'm going to go through some of the modifications I'm making, starting with the easiest and going to some of the harder ones. The first thing is a modification that I spoke about in my very first video about this deck. This Sky Arrow Bridge. I said at the beginning that I would prefer to have this card switched out with a switch for very, come on, focus, for a very specific reason in that, I want this, I want to have more opportunities to retreat my Tynamo on turn one. So I'm just going to unsleeve this thing. You get thrown off to the side. Put my switch in right over there. And that takes care of that one. The second thing that we need to worry about are these Tynamos. As you guys remember from my first video, the reason that I ran these particular Tynamos was because of their free retreat. However, their 30 HP has become a massive liability due to the new, what's that thing? I'm forgetting what it's called. The fighting genie thing. Landorus. There we go. That's the guy that I'm looking for. Because Landorus can hit for 30 to the active and 30 to the bench, these Tynamos are incredibly vulnerable. Now, the question is, which Tynamo do I switch them out with? There are 3 different Tynamos that I know of that I can switch them out for. The first one is from the Dark Explorers set. It's this Tynamo right here. It has the 40 HP that we're looking for. Unfortunately, it also has 1 retreat. Also, unfortunately, all of the 40 HP Tynamos have 1 retreat. So there's no discerning them one way or the other. So what we look here is the attack. Charge Beam. Come on. Flip a coin. If heads, you get to search your discard pile for a basic energy card and attach it to this Pokemon. And if I could get this thing to focus. There we go. See that thing? Well, this is a deck that already has a lot of discard manipulation, a lot of pulling energies out of the discard pile. So there's really no need to try and pull more of them out with this attack. So let's set him off to the side. Second Tynamo that we could potentially go after is this one. Again, 40 HP, 1 retreat. Its attack does 10 damage to the active and 10 damage to a bench. Now this one does have potential. Unfortunately, 10 damage really isn't a whole ton of a lot. But so far, he's better than the one that we tried the first time. Let's see what the third Tynamo looks like. Again, same as the other one, 40 HP, 1 retreat cost. But this one has an attack Thunder Wave. Flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. This is by far and away the most useful thing that we could do, because if we paralyze them, they can't do anything. Especially if it's the Landorus. If we paralyze a Landorus, we save our Tynamos for the later part of the game. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take out these weak little 30 HP Tynamos over here. Set those guys off to the side. We do not want them. And yes, you are going to get to see me sleeve up every single card as I'm doing this. Okay, the next thing that we're going to look at are these two Pokemon communication spots. Now, as I said in the first video, these were the slots that I spent the least amount of time with. I didn't really use them very often. So, to me, they can be an expendable resource, especially if I can replace them with a card that performs searches even better. Insert this little guy. The brand new Computer Search A-Spec allows me to discard 2 cards from my hand and search my deck for any one card. That card goes into my hand and I shuffle my deck afterwards. This is a wonderful card for this deck because it gets what I need out of the deck and it gets my energies into the discard pile. So this is what's going to replace one of my Pokemon communications. I'll set that off to the side. And yes, I know it is an A-Spec. That's why I'm sleeving the heck out of it. Now, also, what this does, in my mind, I don't like running a single communication. In fact, I really, really hate it. So what I have right now is I have a free spot that I can sort of weave in and out of the deck a little bit. For now, I'm going to set this guy off to the side, right down here, and I'm going to move on to the next part of what I want to do. Okay. Now, I said before that I really, really like these Thundurus right here. What they do is they help me set up the deck a little bit better. However, they're relatively useless as a pure attacker. And with all the other dragons and all the stuff that resists Pokemon EX, Thundurus is simply not enough. There's a Sigilyph out there that this deck simply cannot beat in its current form, because Sigilyph has 90 HP and no weakness. Plus, it has a Safeguard Pokepower that prevents all damage done to it by Pokemon EX. So, since we know that Rayquaza is a big deal in the format, and we know that Sigilyph is a big deal in the format, we need to find something that can counter both of those. Enter. Funny little Rayquaza. Not an EX, which means that it only gives up 1 prize when you knock it out. Plus, this Shred Attack does 90 damage, is not affected by any effects on the defending Pokemon. However, it does apply weakness and resistance. This is a cool card to put in the place of these Thundurus, especially since it's looking like the way this deck is going to work is not going to involve a turn 1 charge most games. Or it might or might not. I'm still deciding what to do with these Thundurus. So, I'm going to pull out one of the Rayquazas from here. And I'm going to replace... Let's take the full art Thundurus out. I like having him in a binder, not in a deck. Let's get you in a sleeve. See, he's in a sleeve now. And Rayquaza goes into a sleeve and gets placed right along with my Thundurus. Now, there's some other card. There's another new card that came out in the Boundaries Crossed set. This card is Skyla. Skyla is a supporter card that allows me to search for any trainer card that's in my deck. Come on, focus. Allows me to search for any trainer card that's in my deck. That basically allows me to search for any of these guys. Anything over here in this middle section, in this upper right-hand corner here. So that's a very powerful effect. Unfortunately, if I were to use it to get a supporter, such as my Juniper or my N, it might or might not do what I need it to do. So, what I'm thinking right now, I really like having lots and lots of draw power. Okay, I've said that throughout. I think that Bianca is a really nice way for me to get out of a bad situation. Charon, a little less nice. The reason is, Bianca, there are virtually no situations that I can think of where Bianca is going to get me fewer cards in this build of the deck than Charon will. Charon gets me 3 cards. Bianca draws my hand up to 6. So I think that 2 spots here, the 2 Charons, can be replaced with Skylas. And if I can do this correctly, Charon's out. Skyla. Skyla! I'd like to also get a 3rd Skyla into this deck. I'm thinking that I can use this extra spot right here for that 3rd Skyla. Now remember, this is an initial build. This right now is all going off of how I feel I want the deck to run. And what I'm feeling right now is that I want to keep the Biancas. When I actually get to play test this deck and try it out against something else, it might turn out that those Biancas are simply not as useful as the Skylas. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, you know, I like Bianca. I love draw power. But Skyla just seems to have more uses in this deck. Skyla might be able to get me the Juniper that I need for next turn, or it'll get me the Level Ball or the Ultra Ball that I could use to search for my Pokemon. Skyla can even search me out the Computer Search, which can get me any card in my deck, such as these 4 Fire Energies. Like I said before that, you know, the Fire Energies, I've never had a problem with them, but there's always that remote chance that things might not go the way that I want. So I'm going to take out these other 2 Biancas. Put in a couple Skylas. I'll set these guys off up here. Now what this leaves me with is 1 free spot and a Thundurus that I'm still deciding whether or not I want to use. There are certain things that I can think about putting into those spots. I can think about putting in another attacker, such as a Rayquaza, or maybe a black and white Zekrom, probably not. Maybe a Max Potion. Max Potion works very well in this deck. However, without the ability to get it back, it's a one-time use trainer that might or might not show up when I most need it to show up. There are a couple other things that I was thinking about. One of them is a very, very simple card. It's a card that's been out since the glory days of base set. Energy Search. Again, I've said multiple times that I've never had a problem getting my Fire Energies out. But this is a little extra insurance, just in case something goes weird. I don't think I'm going to be running this thing. I prefer to have Thundurus as my start and to roll from there against most things. I think there is only one deck that I don't want to start with Thundurus, and that one deck is Landorus. There is a card that will help me out with Landorus. In fact, it's a card that's already in the deck. These Tynamos, believe it or not, are great anti-Landorus cards because they prevent the opponent from attacking, or at least force them to draw into something like a switch in order to get their attacks going. Since most Landorus decks, I doubt they will run a card like Full Heal. They're almost certainly running switches. That's about the only way that they will have to get out of a paralysis lock. But paralysis here is only a 50-50 chance. Is there a way to improve it? Show you this little guy. If I can get my camera to focus. There we go. Victini has the ability Victory Star. Once during your turn, after you flip coins for an attack, you may ignore the effects of those coins and reflip it again. Can't use more than one victory star ability each turn. His attack is, well, it's rather useless. I'm not going to worry about that. But what Victini does is it gives me an out against Landorus decks. What it does is it increases my odds to something around 75%. I think it is 75% actually. I'm not 100% certain what the odds are, but it's more than 50%. It's well worth the spot for that thought. Plus, it's still a decent sized Pokemon that has a weakness that you can't really exploit in the first couple of turns. It has a low retreat cost, which means that I can use my Sky Arrow bridges to retreat it. Plus, if I pay the retreat cost, that's another energy card that's in my discard pile. I'm thinking that right now, I'm going to keep the Thundurus in my deck because he's still a good start against most decks that are out there. I'm going to replace this free card, which, as you recall, was a Pokemon Communication. I'm going to take this guy out and put in my Victini. Now, what I've done with this deck is I've improved its consistency. I've given it better matchups against the matchups that it probably will not do well against, such as Landorus, such as fighting decks. And as far as I can tell, I haven't really harmed its matchups against what it's done before. Against Darkrai, my strategy is exactly the same. Spam the Rayquazas, hope to heck they don't knock it out quickly, and if they do knock out the Rayquazas, Super Rod them back into the deck. Just keep dancing Rayquazas until they run out of Darkrai's. Against another electric deck, I basically catcher up their eels and use Raikou to snipe around them. Or I can catcher up the Rayquazas, because Rayquaza has a 3 retreat cost. Big thing to get out of the active position. It can attack. I'm not saying it's a perfect solution, but I have beaten electric decks by forcing the Rayquaza to stay active and sniping the eels around it. Against dragon decks, I can basically focus on Rayquaza and the regular Rayquaza and Raikou, and let Rayquaza EX just sort of sit off to the side. Not going to worry about him too much, unless it's like a finishing blow kind of thing. Against Keldeo and Blastoise, strategy's simple. Catcher up the Blastoise, snipe around the Blast. Actually, you don't even want to snipe around the Blastoise. You just want to get rid of the Blastoise. Blastoise goes away. You don't want it there anymore. Or, if you have the ability to do this, you just send up the Rayquaza, pop the Keldeo. It's very unlikely that once you get rid of a Keldeo with a lot of energy on it, they'll be able to reset that very quickly. Again, what I'm looking at right now is just this is an initial build of a deck going into the new format. As I play this thing, and as you play this thing, don't copy this deck. I'll tell you this right now. Do not copy this deck. Build this deck yourself. Use your own assumptions. Think about what you want to do when you're playing it. This is not a perfect build. This will never be a perfect build. The decks that I build will never be perfect. But they will be perfect for the way that I play the game. For those of you out there, just make sure that whatever you're building, build it for yourself. Build it in a way that you can understand it and in a way that you can best utilize the cards that are in the deck. I hope to see you guys next time. I'll probably have some more City Championships videos, I'll probably have some more White 2 gameplay videos for you guys. Thanks again.